I am Andrea Cecino, Associate Vice Chancellor of Community Outreach, Director of Osher Lifelong Learning Institute here at USCB, which is a very, very long way of saying I connect the community to USCB and USCB to the community. So good morning, Happy New Year. We're so grateful and happy to see you here. This is part of the 20th anniversary of USCB being a 4-year baccalaureate. And what we've been doing is panel discussions that take a look at USCB's role and relevance in particular to a lens. So the first lens we had was history. That was back in, October. Today it's ecology and waterways. And then next month in March, if you look at the back year program on Hilton Head campus, we go and take a look at the future of education. So to get us started today, allow me to introduce to you Chancellor Al Panu. He started his leadership here in 2015. Al, I had to go look at that date because I was like, wow, okay, you're almost at your celebratory year. Al brings with him global leadership, and he has a 3-continent perspective. He was born in Africa, educated in Belgium, and earned his PhD in chemistry in the United States. Under his leadership, his focus has been one of growth. And for the last 10 years, we have grown over 22%. So I think that needs an applause. And it needs an applause because, like I said, USCB's relevance and impact on the community is growing, which is why we're all here. He is a Fulbright Scholar Award recipient and most recently was named an honoree of the Post and Courier's 12 Black Leaders to Know in South Carolina. Dr. Panu? It's crowded up.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, now we're going to try that again. Good morning, everyone. Fantastic. Yeah, I know that it's one of our coldest days here in the Lowcountry, but I am so excited to welcome all of you, and it is so good to see all of you here able to join the panel discussion as we continue in our wonderful celebration of the 20th anniversary of USCB becoming a 4-year degree granting institution. And you are a very important set of stakeholders, and we're just excited to have you participate, and this is really, really critical. In order to celebrate its past, present, and future leadership serving the Lowcountry, USCB is hosting, as Andrea told us, 3 panel discussions, very interactive discussions with all of our stakeholders, community leaders like yourselves, scholars, and students. They're all very critical as part of this conversation and these celebrations. Today's discussions, the second in our series, focuses on the Lowcountry's waterways and ecology. This region is defined by our unique and precious natural environment. Understanding and preserving it is a critical component of USCB's role as an educational institution and a pillar of the community. 20 years ago, area community leaders knew that to grow and prosper, the Lowcountry needed to attract new businesses, industries, and well-educated workforce. And the cornerstone of this plan for prosperity was and still is higher education. This community-centered academic vision continues to guide USCB to this very, very day. And so we are truly, truly excited as we take this as a very, very important part of our mission. 20 years ago, community forums helped galvanize the public support for a new four-year university, and USCB's relationship with the local community has never been stronger. This includes partnerships with businesses, nonprofits, civic organizations that benefit the Lowcountry while enhancing educational experiences for all of our students. Over the past 20 years, an increasingly significant role of USCB is to conduct unbiased research for the public good. Our faculty's expertise and intellectual capital are consistently utilized by civic and business leaders to help tackle the Lowcountry's challenges. And from each of our 3 distinct campuses in Bluffton and Beaufort and on Hilton Head Island, we support innovative centers of multiple engagement and discipline and programs that benefit local communities and the regional economy. None of these programs and partnerships are even considered more important than USCB's work in coastal ecology, conservation, and marine biology. So we are deeply committed to researching our local waterways and sharing that knowledge with the Lowcountry's residents, leadership, visitors, community of scholars all the way throughout. A leader in this work has long been Dr. Joe Staton, Professor of Biology and Marine Science. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Dr. Staton. Joe joined the USCB faculty in 2003. After 5 years as a research assistant professor in the Baruch Institute, the Marine Research Section of USC Columbia. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. Turn it over to Joe. Please help me welcome.
I appreciate it. That's a nice introduction and took about half of my speech. As someone once said, I wish my parents had been here, my father would have been surprised, and my mother would have died enthusiastically. So, thanks for coming today. I'm going to try to keep this kind of informal. My wife says I can make it tough to keep casual. I think the important thing about USCB is we live in a living laboratory, which is Beaufort County, arguably 10% of the wetlands in the nation. 50% of the wetlands in South Carolina are in this county. As the locals say, we're 50% larger at low tide. And it's always been a draw for people to come here and getting very talented faculty, even when we were a 2-year school. And I'm going to reiterate a little bit of the history of that going back, because we got really fantastic people who came here who wouldn't have otherwise because of the access to this living laboratory. This goes back, first person I'm really aware of, and I know there's more back into later, earlier parts, but Dave McCollum in the late 80s took students out to Pritchard's Island, established a relationship with the Rhodes family out there, and was one of the reasons the Rhodes family got interested in donating Pritchard's Island to the university system, focused on us actually originally. And then Ed Kane, who was an anthropobiologist, went on to University of Alaska, and I've lost track of where he is now today. My predecessor, who actually hired me, Randy Cross, and left after a couple of years for another job in Florida, was a marine ecologist, educated at Chapel Hill. Carla Curran, who just retired from Savannah State, was actually my direct predecessor here, and actually, oddly enough, worked in the lab that I worked in Columbia as an undergraduate before she went to Woods Hole. So we got people with these really, really heavy cachet coming here because of their surroundings. I came in 2003 and to help start the 4-year program in biology. And within a couple of years, my colleague left and I was the only tenure track faculty here. And then we built the program from that in the last 20 years to the faculty we have today, some of whom we're going to talk to you today about their research and how that integrates with the county so well and the region. Very diverse faculty. We actually codified this. Students apparently are more attractive. You actually have a title for a degree, so we actually created the marine biology curriculum, and that coastal ecology got redefined. And that happened in fall of 2020, and since then we've grown to 147 majors focused on coastal zone and marine biology. So it's outstanding. A lot of this is powered by the fact that our faculty are very active in working with students in the laboratory to do research. And I have a little clip here that's going to kind of give you a flavor for that. Our students did some lighting presentations in the last semester, and we captured on film. And three of the researchers that presented, they were doing stuff focused on the marine environment. So I'll just share that with you now.
So one of the projects that I've been working on with Dr. Petty, as well as a partnership in the Beaufort County GIS department, we were able to do shoreline mapping, which was tracking erosion. And so here we have our barrier islands, Hilton Head, Pritchard's, Fripp, and Hunting. And the main purpose of barrier islands is to absorb the storm surge that some of these islands may experience. And so, so the main purpose of barrier islands is they could either erode, grow, shift, and so that's what we kind of wanted to track here. And so how I created these images is that I was able to pull these aerial photographs from the Beaufort County GIS database. And so we were focusing mainly on the ocean side, which you can see here. And so using available tools in ArcGIS Pro, I was able to create a feature which was, we would create lines for every year from 2016 to 2024, mapping the shoreline change.
So many fish produce sounds that are linked to courtship behavior, and these fish that do produce sounds have a sonic muscle that beats against their swim bladder to produce said sound. And due to differences in their swim bladder anatomy, each of these species has a distinct acoustic signature. So my research has focused on investigating if the temporal synchrony of these calls across estuaries in South Carolina exists. And these data can provide insight on the impacts of climate variability and human-generated noise on spawning potential.
So things that I've been doing with Spring Island Trust is basically a visual library. He wanted to, Andy Jones, the executive director of Spring Island, he wanted me to kind of create a space where all of their files and all of their data can be in one spot. So instead of it being scattered throughout files in their computers, here you can see the log history. We have multiple different layers to this map, but the two that I was mainly interested in and what they were mainly focused on was the prescribed fire burns. So
I wanted to track have recreational boats increased in the May River estuary over the last 10 years. And from an article, a publication that I read, it said Beaufort County population has increased by 263% in the last 50 years. So I got really interested to see if that meant recreational vessels also increased because of that population increase. So something important I want to talk about is acoustic masking. So you have these anthropogenic noises, and because of that, there are, like Garrett said, fish that produce sound. There are other species like dolphins that produce sound. And it can be a problem to where it's like, you think of boating, and I'm not trying to harp on boating. It's not like boating is fun and it can be used for a lot of good things, but it's not a risk-free activity as well. So, there's things like chemical pollution and noise pollution, and it can actually, it's like deer, like, you could just be driving your boat and accidentally hit a dolphin, or you could go through an aggregation of fish on accident and you never know what's going to happen. But a big thing is that these fish, when they produce and they chorus like that, it's a very low frequency compared to that of anthropogenic noise. So when they're chorusing, it's like being at a concert and you're trying to talk to somebody and you're like, hey, and they're just like, what? Like, what'd you say? It's like that's what these fish are trying to say to each other.
I really like, it's amazing, these kids, not kids, or young adults, they really rise to the occasion, and I love Warren's speech because he used to play in a rock and roll band when he was in high school, so he makes it personal. Anyway,
Joe,
yes.
I'd like to say something very quickly. This is my first year at USCB. I taught physics this past semester. I had all three of these students in my class. They were just so outstanding. I taught for 30 years. And these were some of the best kids I've ever taught. They were so engaged, so involved in what they were doing. They would come out in the hall and show me things. And so these programs are really having, I think, a tremendous impact.
So, hope everybody heard that. My email. Or maybe something else that we shouldn't be saying. Robert saying I can't give your class, please override. Sorry about that. Okay. Shit. All right. So, getting back to my train of thought, going back to Dr. McCollum's work out there in Richards Island, we were stewards of that for a long time, and for a long time, USCB supported that almost solely, staffing and otherwise. And something about our program growing in the new marine biology focus program, we were kind of validated in fall of 2022 with actually state funding for the first time for Richards Island to actually sustain and promote research on the Barrier Island and to help preserve it and understand its place in the Lowcountry kind of ecology. So again, I view the success of our program. We're the biology in general is the second largest program on campus, and just the marine part is bigger than a lot of other programs. So we're very engaged with these students and getting them in the labs to do research, and a lot of that and our strengths are due to the faculty, some who are here today. And I just want to introduce Dr. Kim Ritchie, who is a marine microbial geneticist. She collaborates with OSearch, which is the people who tag the sharks on the coast with her students, and is also the director of Richards Island's research. Stand up and walk up. Dr. Ty Petty, Daniel Ty Petty, who is a phytoplankton ecologist, and he's the director of our water quality lab. Mercer Brugler, who is the new chair of the department. He's actually an invertebrate and environmental genomics researcher, and also has a lot of outreach programs with students. I'll let him tell you about those. Dr. Mahi, who couldn't be here today, actually does, two of his students were presenting on sound production in the marsh as an indicator of ecosystem health, and also to look at how things are changing over time as the waterways change in temperature, and I'll just leave it uncharged with that. And also joining us today is Jody Hayward, who's the executive director of the Port Royal Sound Foundation and the Sheridan Dick Stewart Maritime Center. Been an advocate for our research here and actually funded several faculty projects working with students. And lastly, these though introduction, an icon of Gifford County, Dr. Al Seegers, who is former DNR and a stewardship coordinator for the Ace Basin National Estuarine Research Reserve, which is, if you're not familiar with the Ace Basin, you should be, because it's called by the Audubon Society one of the last great wild places on Earth. It's a large conglomeration. Actually, my boss who worked in Columbia, Bruce Cool, was instrumental in helping developing that, a partnership between public and private entities to create this huge reserve of, I don't even know how many acres, maybe Dr. Siegel will tell us.
340,000.
There you go. I know you have that at his fingertips. That's why you ask people who know things to come. But anyway, my mic is, did it come off? Oh, it fell off. Yeah, well, as you get older, things fall off. Sorry. Is it too much sharing? So, what can I say? Anyway, I'm gonna just let people take it away. Dr. Brugler, I guess since you're here, I'll let you go first.
Sounds good. Good morning. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Mercer Brugler, Professor of Marine Biology and Chair of the Department of Natural Sciences, which includes biology, chemistry, and physics. But I do want to take a moment and point out Dr. Michael Harden back there, who is praising our students. He's our newest physics professor. Dr. Harden, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. Thank you for your kind comments about the students. Awesome. Dr. Panu, thank you for your comments. Dr. Staton, thank you very much, especially for what you built for us. Just a couple comments in terms of my research. I actually don't know what I do because my research is completely student-driven, so I'd actually have to reach out to my students to see what's going on and where they're at. And I think that's really exciting, the fact that students are driving the research. I still have my toes in the deep sea world. So using submersibles, remotely operated vehicles to go down to the bottom of the ocean to collect corals, sea anemones, sponges, bring them back to the lab, sequence their genetic blueprint, and try to describe new species. So we're still doing that. We're part of a program called Pierside. It's out of Florida. If I was in Florida, I couldn't say this, but it's a diversity program. So it's supporting diverse students, getting them interested in ocean science. And so we were able to send 3 USCB students down there this past summer. They were able to go on a research vessel. We had a multi-million-dollar remotely operated vehicle built just for that cruise. On the first dive, did anybody hear through whispers what ran into the vehicle and killed it? Does anybody remember? It was a swordfish. A swordfish was getting territorial down in the Gulf of Mexico. We were at 700 meters depth and rammed into the submersible and killed it, or the remotely operated vehicle. So that was no good. So the cruise was cut short, but we're going to be doing it again, which is really cool. So sending students out on these research cruises around the world. More locally, what we're doing is we're looking at oyster reefs. Delicious, easy to see around our waters. And the reason is in order to study these things, you literally have to walk all over them like Godzilla. You're walking on these things, and you're trying to figure out what lives there. Well, they're probably fleeing or hiding or burrowing or something. And so what we're doing now is we're literally just taking a scoop of water near the reef and sequencing all the DNA that's in that water, genetic blueprints, to see who's home. And it's just been a fantastic project, and thank you and the rest of the students for leading that. It's just awesome. Other things we're doing is we're picking leeches off of alligators and snapping turtles and black-tipped reef sharks, and we're trying to figure out which species live here in the Port Royal Sound. So just basic barcoding. So enough about research. I just want to, one more thing. And that is that because we are small and research focused, we can get students through all of our research labs to see what they like and more importantly what they don't like in terms of the marine sciences. And so they're getting on publications, they're getting on book chapters, and many are leaving USCB and jumping right to PhD programs. They're skipping master's programs. Because what's a master's? I mean, Ty will probably get mad at me when I say this. But what is a master's program? It's do you like research? Can you sustain it for a year or two? And they already know that here at USCB, so they're jumping right to PhDs. We've got somebody at Columbia University right now in New York City, another person at Arkansas State. So it's just really cool, the fact that they're jumping to these big programs. What's that? Alabama, yes, Dauphin Island, University of Alabama, absolutely. What else do I want to say? I think that is all I want to say. Are we doing questions? How are we doing? At the end, absolutely. Okay. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you.
We'll just go down the row in no particular order. Next is Jody Hayward, the executive
I
director.
want to follow
Welcome to my world. Yeah, it's I usually teach after Dr. Brugler in Beaufort, and it's like the kids are all worn out, they're tired, and they're going like, can we just end class early? Yeah, anyway,
What would you like to know?
just our relationship and the projects and the things you like talking about.
Can y'all hear me without this?
No, you can't hear me.
All right, hello? Okay. I'm Jody Hayward. I'm the Executive Director of the Port Royal Sound Foundation. I'm not going to dance around the stage like Mercer, but, so are y'all familiar with the Port Royal Sound Foundation, the Maritime Center? Do you know where we are? We're in Okatee. So we've been in existence for over 10 years. The Maritime Center has been open for over 10 years. And our mission is to conserve the Port Royal Sound, which is all the water that, surrounds us and covers over 50% of this area. So it is, we like to say, it's what makes this place so special. You think about, you may not be a boater, but you're a driver and you drive over the water and you see the salt marsh and you see the birds and you see all the things that we are so lucky to experience here in the Lowcountry. And that's why so many people want to live here, because they want to experience it as well. And so having a foundation that is concentrated on the Port Royal Sound, completely on the Port Royal Sound through education, through research. In our first 7 years of having the center open, the Maritime Center is a free museum for people to just come and learn about the waterways. We have thousands of kids that come through on school field trips, including USCB students. We work with faculty. We try to create experiences for USCB students to be able to experience the Port Royal Sound. So we really concentrate on that education piece. And then about 3 years ago, we started getting more involved in the research side. Not us doing it, but us helping to facilitate it. And that has, our number one partnership has been with USCB. We provided over $100,000 in grant and support funding for research by people here on this panel. Dr. Eric Monty is another recipient of much of our funding and his work with the dolphin research. And so, when we took a step back to look at what do we know about the Port Royal Sound, well, we all know it's beautiful, we all know we enjoy it, we know we love the seafood, but what do we really know? Where's the data on it? How do we be proactive to be able to conserve the Port Royal Sound? The obvious partner in all of that has been USCB. So partnering with these folks here on this panel, and I will say Al Seegers is one of these people. He taught me a lot from the very beginning. So I appreciate him so much, and he's such a gift to our community. So thank you, Al. But to be able to partner with this university it's just so necessary. And it is such an obvious thing for USCB to be the premier leader here as far as doing research in the Port Royal Sound. There's no better laboratory than the Port Royal Sound. And so being able to bring great faculty in and be able to bring great students in to be able to learn so much, and that our part in this is to help facilitate, and we're creating a new online portal where all of the data will be available, so that when they are doing research or bringing people in that are doing research, there's a one-stop shop to be able to find all this data so they can hit the water running, right? So we love our partnership with USCB. We employ USCB students. We've had interns. We love our USCB students who we've employed. I've raised one of them as my son, pretty much. But they're just, it's a great partnership. It's what makes us strong. We help make USCB stronger, and it really strengthens our entire community. Because what it comes down to is that the community has to be all in. You know, we have to have pride in our community. We have to recognize this beautiful environment that we live in, and what do we need to do to conserve it and take care of it. And what a great opportunity for our young people to be able to come here and learn in this wonderful place. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Next, Dr. Ty Petty, who is Daniel Ty Petty, who is the head of our Water Quality Center. Ty's been here for 7 years now.
2020?
Yeah. Oh, what was it?
No, 2019, sorry.
Oh, I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah, it
Seems
feels like
seems
a
longer. A valued colleague. I'm not going to expound on all the things he does because I'm hoping you will. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Joe's got a love-hate relationship with me, and apparently I've been around longer, or feel like I've been around longer than I actually have. So my name
That's a
is
good thing.
Ty Petty, Associate Professor of Oceanography is my technical title. Much of what I do is water quality related, as Dr. Staton mentioned. Going back to what Anu, Joe, Mercer, and now Jody have all said, moving here and taking a position here was definitely facilitated by the fact that this university is in Beaufort County, right? We do have this fantastic natural laboratory to understand our estuarine environment. Many of you know this estuarine environment is quite unique compared to true estuaries. It's a much saltier environment than your typical freshwater flowing into the ocean sort of estuary. So there's some really interesting questions we can ask here. But coming here, and after I got here, I didn't know it until I got here. It's amazing how little we know about this particular system. Bluffton, the county and particularly the town of Bluffton, but the county as a whole, and Hilton Head and Beaufort too, I don't want to knock any of the cities or towns, but we really are more forward-thinking than much of the state is when it comes to our environmental resources, and that's fantastic and awesome. And proof of that is the May River, our Bluffton, back in, when we were in we did our masters together. He doesn't like master's degree, but he got one himself. We did our master's at College Charleston. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, Bluffton did a May River assessment, and now they've completed, is that right, Al? Haven't they completed? I think they just recently completed a second round of that to see how things have changed over time. My point is that not a lot of places are doing those sort of things. So we do have bits and pieces within our watersheds, May River, Ocoee River, that we know a little bit more about, but as a whole, we don't know a whole lot, except for one study done back in the 70s when the BASF plant was supposed to be coming here, and they did an environmental survey of the entire region. So everything we do here is new, which is exciting, but it's also frustrating when you want to try to make decisions because you don't know anything. So coming here, one of the things I wanted to do was start and complement what the state and other local and state institutions were doing with regard to water quality and environmental monitoring. And so through my first grant was from the Port Royal Sound Foundation, and they have continued to fund that since I came here in 2019. And that is to do weekly monitoring of the Chichessie, Beaufort, and Broad Rivers, looking at basic environmental conditions like temperature, how salty the water is, but also looking at biological and chemical constituents too, so that we can better understand these systems. The state monitors on a monthly basis, which is good and great, but you can imagine in a tidal system, things can change quite rapidly, particularly if you throw in storm events or something too. So monitoring on a more frequent basis has been the goal since we came here, and the Port Royal Sound Foundation has been fantastic in funding that this whole time. Most of that money, I don't get any salary from it. It's going towards student salary and just the basic supplies to keep that going. But it's been a fantastic partnership, so thank you. And not only they're funding students working in our labs, but they do take interns at the Port Royal Sound Foundation during the year and in the summers, which is fantastic. And they have now hired 2 people that have come through our labs at USCB that now work. So they're not only training these individuals, but they're actually hiring them into the foundation, which is fantastic. So the research side is environmental monitoring. As Joe said, I'm also the director of the Water Quality Lab. USCB has had a Water Quality Lab for a while. which is great because most environmental monitoring we monitor for the town of Bluffton and Beaufort County. We may slowly get into Hilton Head too. But most of that is done outside of the university, so it's great that we have this infrastructure within the university because students can be involved with that. It's very applied training that they can then go out and get jobs at towns, cities, or state and federal agencies. So it's a great resource for us. So I took that over a year and a half, 2 years ago. But as I mentioned, we do water monitoring and running of samples for the town of Bluffton and Beaufort County as a whole. And so that's the applied side of my lab. I think that's it. Just thank you all for coming and listening.
One thing that Dr. Payne didn't talk about was during COVID, he and his lab actually source tracked COVID viruses, not just on the USCB campus through our wastewater streams, but also through the municipal wastewater. And so he really knows his stuff. Well, sorry. I didn't mean, that sounded weird, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'd like to welcome, as faculty members, not the least of which, Dr. Kim Ritchie, who is a world authority on coral diseases, published numerous papers as an undergraduate in Nature magazines, something I'll never say to the end of my degree, end of my tenure. She has a CV as long as both my arms, and is a native of Walterboro. We're actually very happy to get her back to the area. So I will let her talk about her diverse work and interests. Dr. Kim Ritchie.
Thank you. So I came here in 2016. Before that, I was a research scientist at Boat Marine Laboratory in Sarasota, Florida, where I studied, I was the director of the Coral Health and Disease Program. So I was in the Keys a week a month. That was part of my contract. So I was in the water all the time. Didn't teach at all. So, but now at USC Beaufort, we still have students that are working on various aspects of coral disease research, probiotics for coral diseases. We've got a paper coming out on coral disease research. So we still have a partnership with MOAT and with Florida Fish and Wildlife for these projects. While I was in Florida, I started working with a group that tags great white sharks. They're called OSearch. This is the only group that's able to catch them and get them out of the water. So we've had numerous students. They started doing expeditions here after I came off of the coast of the Carolinas. The Port Royal Sound Foundation was one of the first funding sources for some of these projects because we now know that great white sharks are off of our waters roughly this time of the year in the spring, probably mating. So that's what they're doing here. We haven't seen them come in the Port Royal Sound, the large sharks. We have various different shark projects, and students go on those expeditions, and they've had a lot of fun when they're off the Carolinas. We'll be doing more of those this spring as well, off of smaller boats. The big ship is decommissioned for the time being, so we'll have lots of little expeditions off from Brunswick off of the Carolinas this spring. What else do I work on here? Lots of different, so I'm a marine microbiologist, so anything that is beneficial for hosts in the ocean, so corals, sharks, and we're just starting to work on sea turtles. So something that's happened within the past year is this opportunity to do research on Pritchard's Island. And this has been a fantastic opportunity for students. We've had at least a dozen student internships that have to do with various aspects of Pritchard's Island. And one of them is sea turtle monitoring program. So the students are out there every day for 6 months, from May through October, the last nest. So they've gotten a lot of crash course training this past year because we're taking over the sea turtle monitoring program for Pritchard's Island and Little Capers Island, which is just south. There are various different projects going on Pritchard's. Every single faculty member just about has at least one project going on or will have projects going on Pritchard's Island. We've got a shorebird study that's starting, and this is a great opportunity for students to do internships and learn shorebirds and record them on Pritchard's, which hasn't been done. We've got, I'll let some of these guys talk about their other projects, but we've got dune plant studies or plant studies that are being planned. What am I forgetting? A bat study. I'm Snake. I'm gonna let you talk about all that. But this has been a fantastic opportunity, and because of this, we're also getting new partnerships with community members who want to help. So we've got a voting group that's going to offer an internship for students. We've got outside Hilton Head and outside Palmetto Bluff that's going to offer several internships for students, which is one of our requirements for the marine biology degree. So this, you're going to hear a lot more about things going on in Pritchard's. It's just been 1 year, and we've got so many projects going on.
I mean, Dr. Ritchie has so much stuff going, as all panelists do. It's hard to actually get up here and give a short spiel about and remember everything, even with notes. Last but not least, Dr. Al Seegers, probably one of the first people who reached out to me when I started here, and I didn't get full advantage because back then when you're a faculty of one, you're just running in place to stay still. But definitely been a friend to the university for a long time and knows so much more about the history of this region than I could possibly even enlighten you about. But please, Al, take it away.
Thank you. You're too kind. I guess the first thing I've watched over the years, and I look where this program is now, is the amazing people we have doing work here. I mean, 10 years ago, if you told me this, I would have never thought they would be at this level as far as a scientist. And they're learning things locally. I mean, that's the information we need to know for our life support system. You know, it's something that is a water clean. Is the food safe to eat? Are the fish healthy? Are the dolphins okay? These are things we need to know if we're going to continue having the quality of life we have here in South Carolina. So they create the data. We've got to package that data in a way that the non-scientists can understand. Jody, that's what they do. They try to educate you and me in the basics of what we're doing to where we live and how we can do it better. And without that, you aren't going to change. And basically, you are the ones who are going to drive positive change by what you do at home, by who you vote for, by the actions you push in the community. So really, it's up to us as individuals to protect this for our kids and grandkids, to use the information they're creating, and to ensure that our county, state regulators are doing the jobs they're supposed to be doing to protect our waterways. Because everything revolves around the water as far as our quality of life. So Joe, I congratulate you on what you put together here. I'm just, again, amazed at the people we have here doing this work. And I encourage you all to do your part even through trash pickups. I mean, there's simple ways we can all get engaged by the lifestyle you use, by taking out a checkbook and writing a check to conservation organizations that are helping us protect this landscape. So ultimately, it's up to us to protect it for our kids and grandkids. They're giving us the tools, but we got to put them to work. So, Joe, thank you for having us today.
It's way too much credit given to me, but I was happy to be a part of building the program. I will just share this anecdote briefly. When I came to Beaufort County, my neighbors would ask me, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a professor at the university." And they said, "Which one?" I said, "There is only one university." He said, "Well, there's TCL and USCB." And they didn't really distinguish between us. A little further along, when we got a few more faculty, you know, I'd hear from other people I knew at Clemson and Coastal Carolina and Charles and Charleston, people I've known since graduate school, some of them. And they said, "Oh yeah, I was down in Beaufort, we were doing research and we left." I said, "You didn't think about checking in with us while you were down here? Maybe we could help you out about things we know." Now, with this faculty, people are calling us and asking what we can do to help them out. So it's evolved within really the last 12 to 15 years. That we're, you know, it used to be kind of this I called it carpetbagger syndrome. People would come in and they get the information they want, they'd leave, and they wouldn't even tell us what they found out. And now we have collaborative efforts with Coastal Carolina. We have collaborative efforts with College of Charleston, where both of these guys got their master's degrees. I got mine in Maryland, so I believe in master's degrees for a lot of students. But if they don't have to do it, you know, that's another thing. Get out and work for a student. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it really is incredible. And I played a small part just because I've been here. somebody had to do it. And certainly the administration has changed demonstrably in the time I've been here with the new guard. We have students working on grants. We've encouraged people to write grants. Dr. Petty got our first South Carolina Sea grant here. Other folks have gotten major grants to support other activities. And again, the money from the state to help support Spectrum Island research to the tune of $500,000 a year has been instrumental in getting our students another order of magnitude of involvement in the environment. So, and local support is key to that. So, keep voting your pocket votes and your interest about the environment. I've often said that a lot of people here come from elsewhere, and maybe USCB doesn't matter to them per se, but what we do at USCB does matter in terms of preserving the environment. People who don't care about anything else here care about the environment because that's why they moved here. They might have come here for golf, but they're enjoying working golf. So anyway, I guess with that, we'll open it up to questions. And anybody has questions, I'll be glad to field them. Yes.
Is the university involved in the Paris Island living seawall that's being discussed to add for their?
So the question is, are we involved with the Living Shores program?
Yes.
Yeah, and we are connected to that tangentially. It's actually, there's a group called the PEARLS, which is the Pritchard Island Research Living Shoreline Initiative. It's kind of a I'd say the other side of the coin. I'll let some of the people more involved with it talk about it, if you would like.
Yeah, so we're not part of that project specifically. It's run by it's a Coastal Carolina group, but we are collaborating with them now that they're down here, and they are actually being very kind and throwing instrumentation and knowledge to not only do what they're doing at Paris Island, but other parts of the Port Royal Sound. So through collaborations with them, we're working on we have a continuous monitoring station, so it can monitor environmental and biological and chemical conditions on as often as 15 minutes, but half hour, an hour, as opposed to taking like a weekly sample. Now we have these really in-depth data sets. But we have one at the Chesapeake River, the Maritime Center. We're working to put one in at the Broad River and hopefully other places. And by working and collaborating with them, with Coastal Carolina individuals, we're actually writing a resilience grant that's due Monday. I should have typed it right now. It's two phases. The first phase is a planning grant, and so that would bring Coastal Carolina is the lead PI because, to be honest, they have the experience, they have the toys, they have the knowledge to do the resilience side of things. But what's great, as I mentioned before, is Beaufort County is so far ahead of many other places. We have a resilience plan, and so this is just not resilience, not just in clean water, but things that are already happening are going to get worse. Sea level rise, flash flooding, shoreline erosion. All these things are part of the resilience plan, and so this NSF money will help us pick and choose some very specific identified needs, develop them further, and it's meant not to just gather data, but produce a product that is usable in the community, right? And it's meant to be an incubator. It'll be, hopefully this gets funded, I'm telling you all about this and then we can fund it. But it's meant to develop these modules, but then it's meant to be something that's usable across the state and even across like the East Coast or the nation. And what's really neat about the incubators, $500,000 for 2 years, that's good and great. But if you get that, you're in line to get a phase 2, which is up to like $15 million over 5 years to do this work here in Beaufort County, which is very exciting. And it's all because this group came in, and like Joe said, they're coming in here and doing work, but they're communicating with us and partnering with us now instead of coming and going, sort of thing. So long answer to your short question. But yeah, hopefully that helps.
I just was questioning if you're monitoring things, if the law of unintended consequences can occur, and they're doing this natural seawall, things are still changing. What happens? So you are involved
We definitely involved, and part of what they're doing there, and I don't want to talk about the project too much because I'll probably get it wrong, but part of it is, I mean, they're doing seafloor mapping. They're trying to develop novel and new ways to stabilize the shoreline. Yeah, thank you. Stabilize the shoreline in ways that we haven't done before, because the problem is just going to continue, but it's not just going to continue, it's going to get worse. And so we got to start thinking forward and outside the box compared to what we have. And that's nothing against living shorelines that are done as they are now. It's just we need more options too. So.
Yeah, the irony is around the nation, everywhere you have these big military installations, sometimes they're the last preserved ecosystems in that area, like Camp Pendleton in Southern California and other. So, I mean, we can learn a lot from having access and interact with people at Paris Island. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm kind of new to this area, and this is probably a question off the board here, but can you tell me, is there any offshore drilling anywhere in this area? And if so, how does that impact the work that you guys do?
No. The question is there any offshore drilling? And there's been some moves to try and do that, but they pretty much, the state has, I think, shut that down. Really, the sedimentary structure here is not conducive to that. I could go into the sediment geology. We went to school in Louisiana, so we know a lot about petroleum geology, even we didn't want to because of Deepwater Horizon and other things like that. Yeah, it's the Gulf of Mexico is somewhat unique, and also the North Shore of Alaska, which does need protecting because it has similar characteristics. Yeah, and pretty much anywhere you see an oil, there used to be an epicontinental sea over the top of it, and we just wouldn't have that. We have shelf here, and it has migrated in now, but not to the extent you see in that area. So I was just gonna say, for those of you who are new, Beaufort County, talking about progressive, we were the first county in the state to actually LiDAR map, which is a laser version of radar, map the entire county. And we did such a great job that when the state followed suit, they didn't do it as well as we did. They just took our data and said, okay, you're done. And then we did it again more recently, and I think there's a third wave of it that's going on now. And we've been active for a long time. Dan Morgan, who runs the GIS office for the county, has taught for us for 20 plus years. And it's just phenomenal. He really wants to partner more with us to do some of the things that you saw Loren one time talking about with shoreline changes and mapping that over time. We have data from a previous student that goes back to the 1920s with flyovers of Hunting Island that we integrated that data. So it's actually even more extensive. She was looking at more recent stuff just with her project. So really neat stuff. Other questions? Marilyn?
I understand that Pritchard's Island is a pristine island, i.e. wilderness, and I know you can only get there by boat. I'm wondering, in all of this planning, and now that you're getting so much attention and people are so interested, is there anything in the planning now for a way, either a maritime center there or something where people like us can come out there and visit it or be educated in some of the projects that you're doing, other than reading it in the paper or,
So the question is there going to be access to general population of things out of Pritchard's Island? I'll let the director answer that question.
Well, it's tricky getting on and off the island safely right now, so we don't have docks set up for public access. The public does go out there, but again, it's tricky boating, so they kind of have to know the lay of the land already. It's usually people that have had some expertise in boating around those places where you ground yourself very easily. We do have plans for building a back dock to make access for our researchers and shorebird studies and sea turtle projects easier. And we have plans to try to figure out how to spend the night on the island, so we really want to have nighttime monitoring of sea turtles. But Coastal Expeditions doesn't go out there. And we have a partnership with Fripp Resort, and they, even when they rent their boats, they tell them not to go on that side as well. So it's kind of unspoken, don't ask, don't tell, you can go out there. Because we're not going to tell anyone they can't. And we would like to have a program where we can get people out there safely, once we get a larger boat where we can take big groups, and so we do have that.
You do have to be careful about building on a barrier island, as we all know.
I know what happened to the first place.
Yeah, so for people aren't aware, the University of South Carolina system built a lab there in 1993, 94. It was actually a coastal lab named after Mr. Rhodes initially. He tore his sign off because he didn't want anything named after him. But it had 200 yards of undisturbed dune system in front of it, and by the time 2015 or so rolled around, the ocean was lapping up underneath it. So barrier islands are like the weather in many cities. If you don't like where they are, watch them and they'll change. So we just recently removed that structure because of the potential hazards of it staying out there. And so anything out there in the future probably will be temporary at best. So, Dr. Heist.
Thank you very much for this presentation. It's excellent. I do have to point out that was the Rhodes building was the second one that was being knocked out on Pritchard's Island.
Yeah. Okay. It was the first real permanent structure.
First real permanent.
Yeah. The other one was kind of a shanty.
But it brings to mind the role of development, because it's not only barrier islands, but now the islands behind it. Port Royal Island or Port Royal Sound is affected by sound, it's also affected by lights, but it's also developed as such. So there are ways of measuring the effect and modifying the types of development that come about. Constantly being pressure, being real pressure society for the virus.
I wish I could eloquently recap everything that Dr. Heist has said. But basically talk about all the multiple facets of impact, but development is one of the largest impactors in Beaufort County. And keeping some of that in check. I just had a colleague from Florida contact me. One of his graduate students is working here in Beaufort County, and she's concerned about something they're trying to develop near Phillips Island right now. So yeah, you see things in the news all the time about developments. And in fact, Pritchard's Island was originally bought to be developed by someone, and the fellow went bankrupt, thank goodness. And that's why Mr. Rhodes actually bought it at an auction and set up the places that preserved initially for his family, but then for the larger concerns of the coastal zone. Dr. Payne.
If I may make a quick comment here. One of the reasons for these presentations is not only to reflect on the past 20 years, but also to be able to envision the next 20. And we would be able to get feedback from all of you, and the dreams and the aspirations, and being able to look at what has been accomplished. And as an example of this particular challenge, we increasingly talking about the need for environmental engineering program. And that's in part an example of being able to address the kinds of things that are connected with all of the work that is taking place in this space. So it surfaces some of the needs, it surfaces some of the gaps, and it positions us hopefully as an entire community to push for the kinds of things that are definitely going to make sense for us here. So.
On development, we need long-term solutions. Development's coming, and it's not necessarily bad. We're all here because we can. And it's a matter of how do we do it smart. There are places to develop, there are places not to develop. But as far as water quality, quality of life, wildlife, there's a huge effort trying to connect the Ace Basin with the Savannah River Refuge. So Gregory Neck, I don't know if you saw where the Nature Conservancy, the Open Land Trust, and the military bought 4,000 acres at the headwaters of Port Royal Sound. So our toolbox right now is land protection. before it turns into huge swaths of condominiums. I came down Argent Road today and I couldn't believe the overpass. And, we're here. The enemy is us. And so are we going to be smart as we move ahead? And there are tools, but it's generally giving dollars to conservation organizations, supporting those organizations that are acquiring easements, that are getting land protection, and kind of putting something there in place before developers get it, and aiming that development toward appropriate sites.
Can I add to that? Please, don't mind.
I just want to add, recently last year, we went through a big thing with Keep Chelsea Rule. I don't know if y'all are aware of that. And Chelsea Plantation is a beautiful piece of property. And, someone wanted to develop it and put a lot of houses on it, and the communities, rose up and said no. And so, like Al said, a big part of conserving the Port Royal Sound is protecting all the land in the watershed. But the other piece of it is this data collection. The more we know about water quality, and we've got this amazing citizen science program that's going on with over 100 people that are involved in this and doing data collection around the Port Royal Sound. We have great plans to increase that and improve that, and sending this data over to the lab at USCB so that they can see where there's an issue and red flags can go up so that we can do something about it immediately. But like Al said, we can't stop development. We just need smart development. I mean, you all probably feel like, I'm here, we now put a gate on 278 and stop everybody from coming? Well, apparently that's not gonna work, so we just need these tools. And part of this portal that I mentioned earlier is taking all the data and putting it in a place so that we can create the tools so that the decision makers can make good decisions based on factual information, and so that we're developing in the right places in the right way, to help further conserve the Port Royal Sound. So it's a great question, and one that requires all the work that these guys are doing, and then putting it in the hands of the people who are making those decisions.
Hi, my question is about erosion patterns, because Lorraine, the first student who talked on the video, looking at those maps, erosion maps over time, and Pritchard's Island is, the way I've heard it described, is a living laboratory for an undisturbed barrier island that's not being mitigated by beach renourishment, that doesn't have a seawall, will not have a seawall, to study the patterns, natural patterns. So the question is, do we know yet, as Lauren mentioned the options, growing, shifting, or being eaten away by erosion? What is the case of Pritchard's Island?
I guess the director is delegated to me. So yeah, I was, this is actually an idea that Joe started off with. He mentioned Dan Morgan, GIS in the county. So we had a student before Lauren that started mapping. She didn't do Hilton Head, but she did Harbor, Hunting, Fripp, and Pritchard's. But this was historical. So there are old aerial photography from the 30s, 50s, and 70s.
Earliest 1929.
29, okay. So that's black and white, and so she stitched those together, and we can look at the stability or movement of the shorelines. With that work, we saw that, we have data gaps here, right? But and this is before satellite imagery, but the shoreline was fairly stable until the mid to late 70s. Since then, and you can go on Google Maps or Google Earth and click through the years, you can see for Pritchard specifically, it just very quickly marching backwards, and it seems to be continuing at that pace. It's pristine, it's not impacted by humans directly, but there are other islands nearby that do have seawalls, that do have groins, that do get beach renourishment, and it's changing that whole sand budget and everything, and it's indirectly affecting Pritchard. So as of right now, it's marching backwards, which is not unusual. If these other islands had been left to be, they'd be shifting north or south and marching backwards too. It's just that we have houses or campgrounds on these other islands that we want to keep, and so it's influencing this pristine island. So.
Yeah, by the way, that student, Joanna Boney, is now working at Port Royal Sound Foundation. So, yeah, actually, the northeast corner of the island was growing actually until the 60s or 70s. It was actually adding. So, and then some changes happened in the 70s that might have interrupted that process, which I am not allowed to say by law. But we have a law against sea walls around islands now for that reason.
Yeah, the images are pretty stark. You see it stable and all the islands kind of behaving similarly, and all of a sudden Pritchard's just goes away.
I have a question. It's about your opinion on the reusable plastic bags. Al, you mentioned.
Lindsay?
Yeah.
One of our 2004 graduates? Yeah, there you go. Hey, biology all over the place.
Yeah, so single-use plastic bags, I know that we used to find a lot of them in stomachs of animals, and they went to the reusable plastic bags. Do you guys have an opinion on that? Is that something we should be fighting against?
Great question. Sorry.
I think Charleston County has banned those.
Okay.
And I think Beaufort County, my understanding to this point, has refused to do that. I'm not sure why. I still find the thick plastic bags along roadways and places, and I'll call it what it is. It's just a scam way to get around the intended result of banning the thin plastic bags. And so I go to places that give you paper bags.
So we've had recent conversations with county council members, Alice Howard in particular, who's the new chair. It's wonderful. And they're about to start working on that again. And we're going to be a part of it, and we're also starting a youth advocacy group. We're going to meet with like high school students, because there's nothing like a kid coming into a council meeting, to make a difference. So yeah, they recognize that they put a ban out there, and then people got around it, so we need to do something about it.
So speaking of history, Lindsay was in my first genetics class I ever taught here. I know your maiden name. What's your name? What?
I said I still have nightmares about this.
Oh.
It was awesome. Great experience.
I share your pain.
It's really awesome to see where USCB has come. So
Yeah.
great work.
Lindsay had a long career working with DNR, and then decided to become a nurse and graduated from a nursing program afterwards. So she is a double graduate of USCB.
I'd like to say one more thing about these reusable bags. So as part of Pritchard's, the students in my lab are part of the Smithsonian Institution's Ocean Traveler Program. What that means is we go to Pritchard's every month or so and we collect trash. And we're looking for what lives on that trash. Is it something that started growing on the trash locally, or did it come from the Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, and landed on Pritchard's Island? And so while collecting this trash, these reusable bags, you see a little bit sticking out of the sand, and you go to pull it up and it just shreds, and you've got plastic fibers all over the place. So I'm not a big fan.
Unless you've been living in a cave, we see microplastics all over the news, in our body organs and fetuses and placentas, and that's something that's happened, and that's Boomer's generation. Is that a legacy we're leaving to our kids? So I think we have a responsibility to attack that and do something about it. Stop that plastic inflow into the water, number one. That's picking up trash, minimizing use of these. I hate to see these sitting up here, to be honest with you. And easy to use a reusable water bottle. Economically, it makes sense. Environmentally, it makes sense. It's just, we've got to get it. And it's something you have to do as an individual, okay? The numbers are staggering, and again, if you look at these microplastics showing up where they are, we don't know what it's going to do to an unborn fetus, to the generation coming, but we created this problem, and we need to get off our butts and try to do something about it.
So microplastics are a problem, bags are a problem, but probably bottled water is probably one of the worst things we ever did in terms of landfill accumulation, because these things just don't, they've changed them somewhat now, but they just break down in microplastics faster. They don't necessarily, they have mitigated the problem, they just changed the face of it, so. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Related to Dr. Ty Petty's work, have you had any involvement with the Beaufort-Jasper Water Sewer Authority related to the coliforms and that sort of thing? I mean, it kind of fits in with what Dr. Panu was saying about environmental engineering, about what their impact is on our environment.
So I have partnered and collaborated with, I always get the acronym, BJWSA. Dr. Staton alluded to it before. They helped during COVID times, we're still in COVID times, but during the height of it, we were getting samples from all their various plants and monitoring COVID abundance or incidents around the county. They do track by law, they have to track bacterial contamination in their waters. And I will say most people don't like the idea of water that's coming through a wastewater facility, but the technology is actually pretty good. And the water coming out is pretty clean, which is why they're allowed to spray it on golf courses and all that. Now, it's not perfect. I would say that what comes out of that water that is more impactful than bacteria, there are some pipes directly into the environment, but there's others that, like I said, it's spray irrigation. It's more nutrients that I've seen, at least, than the bacteria side of things. And I think, yes, there are leaky septic systems, there are busted wastewater pipes at times that will discharge large amounts in the environment, but those are, relatively few and far between. And I would say in general, and others up here can correct me if they disagree, but BJWSA does what they're supposed to do, and they're pretty well regulated by the government. So, but on top of that, we do, and Dr. Staton mentioned to it too, we have contracts with the town of Bluffton, and we now have a grant, the Sea Grant that he mentioned, where we're doing monitoring. So town of Bluffton is May River. For the Sea Grant, we're doing work in the South Edisto River, so up in the Ace Basin, where we're using not just the EPA method for monitoring Ecology or fecal bacteria in general. We're using genetics to identify, is it human, is it dog, horse, deer, like where's the source, because ultimately that can help you change land management decisions, right? If you see it's human, then okay, maybe you do have some leaky septic systems in the watershed. If it's dog, then it's people just not picking up after their dogs, right? So we are doing it in that way.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about the school. So you mentioned that you're hiring prestige faculty, your students are going off to graduate school at, let's say, Columbia, and they're skipping your master's programs to go direct to PhD.
Not always, but yes.
Do you have, okay, so obviously, but there's something going on here in terms of where you're trying to take the program, and that's my question. So do you have long-term strategic goals about how you want USCB's, the biology, marine sciences, and natural sciences departments to be nationally ranked or ranked in the Southeast or something like that? Where are you taking all of this?
I will let our chair.
So we are currently creating a master's program what do you mean? Ha ha ha! This is exciting. Absolutely exciting. So yeah, master's program. And I say that because some students don't go into graduate school. Graduate school. They go off to jobs. Some don't get something right away, so we'd like to have sort of a buffer after they finish here. If they don't get something right away, employment graduate school, they can enter a master's program and get additional papers or experience before they get their job. The biggest hurdle we have for a master's program is it has to be unique in the state. And so we've got, where we went, Bryce Marine Lab, so it can't necessarily be a strict marine biology program. We've got to set ourselves apart a a little bit. So maybe it's going to be the environmental engineering. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but we're actively pushing that forward. Ideally, I'd like to continue to grow our faculty, to offer more research experiences for our students. See, Skipper's gone and Panu's gone, so I can say this. This is good. I would love to demolish the Marine Science Building over on the Beaufort campus and get a larger science and technology building to house a larger marine biology program. We are busting at the seams, we are growing, and we need space to grow. So that's my vision.
Yeah, real quick, can I add?
Yeah, absolutely.
First of all, yeah, the master's program is the next step. Maybe far in the future we have a PhD, but I personally like the idea of staying a little bit smaller, having undergrad and master's focused program. And had we had the master's program since we've been here, I think we would have seen dozens of students stick around for another year and a half and walk out here with a bachelor's and a master's. Because many of them are already doing the research as an undergrad. So it'd be an easy step for them, and then they can go on to a PhD or they can go on to a job with a higher degree. And since you mentioned the Marine Science Building, I invite or I beg all of you to come over to our Marine Biology building on the Beaufort campus. Personally, I kind of like the building. It's strange and quirky like myself, but it is a complete waste of space. We need infrastructure. So I hear some of you asking, what can we do to help grow this program? And everything we're all doing up here, the simple answer is money, right? But money in the form of giving us new and improved infrastructure and the ability to hire new and even better faculty and research scientists. And so, yes, that can be checkbook out of your checkbooks, but it can also be supporting the local politicians and even that USCB would not be where it is without this local community, right? The state is not supporting us like they support other institutions. So thank you to all of you for us being here. It's the local community. So continue that support, continue supporting the local politicians, the county, the jurisdictions that help us grow. But then also, like Al was saying, think about who you're voting for at the state and federal level that can help bring stuff here. We're perfectly situated to continue to grow and get bigger. It's a fantastic location and we're on the right trajectory. We just need help.
So I was just going to say that Shannon Erickson had planned to be here today, but she had a special vote called in Columbia with a meeting she had been to, and she apologized for not being here. One of our alumni, and certainly a firm supporter of our school here and the biology research mission that we do. You had another question?
Yeah, just a short one. I used to work at Georgia Tech in the Environmental Health and Safety Division, and we had a program there called leaking underground storage tanks. Major problem, in the area there, and I'm curious to know if that's a problem in South Carolina, or does that impact anything you guys do?
We still have a lot of septic systems even in relatively developed areas. And part of what Dr. Petty's research, which was started by Dr. Rishi before Petty came, is source typing, using DNA signatures to try to figure out the sources of these things, to tell whether it's human septic system or wildlife. We have a lot of fecal coliform problems in the estuaries around here that follow rainstorms because you wash all the deer poop off into the marsh and it's got the same impact, even though it's not human. So, these are tricky things that we face in this area. We have huge wildlife populations that also impact the environment, sometimes in negative ways in the short term. They're part of the natural system, but they pulse through. So understanding that better is obviously, you know from environmental health sciences. I used to collaborate with the folks at environmental health sciences at USC Columbia when I was up there. So really important aspects.
Yeah, I think the septic is probably the largest underground storage leaky system. But the county as a whole, and particularly like the town of Bluffton too, they've made huge pushes to get off septic and centralize the sewer. There's clearly more to be done. But there are people within the towns and counties whose names I won't mention, but they don't necessarily like centralizing sewer because as soon as you run sewer to a new location, that means you can grow even bigger. But for the existing infrastructure, getting off septic and onto a central is yeah, from an underground storage standpoint, it's the septic, I would think, unless Al or somebody knows of others.
Yes.
I was just thinking, what about the Marine Corps Air Station in Beaufort? A lot of the air bases throughout the country have had issues with PFAS. Has there been any kind of research or understanding of what sort of environmental issues are out at that Marine Corps Air Station?
Not to my knowledge, but maybe not to Damon.
They, not for PFAS that I'm aware of, going back to Beaufort Jasper, they are mandated now to start monitoring that in the drinking water supply. There have been studies that I've heard about. I've not seen the data, and I don't know how it should be public knowledge, but there have been studies at both Parris Island and the air station, I believe, particularly geared towards their munition ranges and heavy metals and that sort of thing, which, and again, I've been told, I haven't seen the data, so I don't know all the details, but they have clearly found stuff, but I don't know how prevalent it is as you move away from those bases, what's found there. Yeah.
We were finding PFAS in sea turtles 15 years ago. So it's like microplastics. It's a legacy that we've created that's here, and the more you look, the more you're going to find.
And the answer is not to stop looking. I think what we're going to do is we're going to call it at this point, and there's refreshments in the lobby. We'll be out there. If you have questions personally for us individually, we're glad to handle them out there. And thank you all for coming. I think it's pretty successful. Davis, one of our students, came to attend, and there's other alumni in the audience, so it's really nice to have them all. We'll see you in the lobby.